Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the LIBERcast episode 119. We have as people to get involved, and this is one of the message that I want to bring up tonight. And I'm going to talk about it a lot often. And before we're starting, I just want to tell people, get involved. You stumble upon my work, you know what we're talking about, and I'm going to talk about the One Great Work Network. And I want to really I want people to put their attention where their care is. And this is a bunch there. They're really caring about the work, and they're doing it freely. This is the One Great Work Network.com. This is an aggregate of researchers, content creators, and there's a lot of different things to discover there. I'm just right there with Darian Sarrazin, and then we have Cory, at Crit Rick, and all this stuff is free. There's information about the occult, morality, natural law, and other subject that can be discovered there. So it's free. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to do anything. You just there and you listen to this stuff. And for a little start, I suggest you to go on Mark Passio's work. It's called Natural Law Seminar. It's 6 or 7 hours long, or 8. I don't quite remember, but it's an extensive expose of the occult and what is natural law, and the work is incredible. So go there, start from there, or you can go right just on the podcast and start from episode number 1 from Mark Passio's What on Earth is Happening.com. So go on there. It's free. There's no justification. You just ignore it. So thank you, everyone. My shout out is done. So I happen to have the chance of having smart, good-hearted people around me, and I want to thank everyone before I'm starting, to every guest that have been there before, and everybody who are supporting the LIBERcast and listening to it, the people who subscribe. I just want to express you my gratitude. You are the pillars of the LIBERcast. And I want you to get the most quality of my rants, of the guests, and all the information that is. So share this stuff. This is where it starts. It starts with cooperation. It starts with supporting each other. So go there, and it's free. You can go on Odysee, Facebook, YouTube, but I suggest everybody to go on Odysee. Odysee is censorship. There's no censorship there. It's put on a blockchain, so you can download this stuff. You can share it. So go on Odysee, on the LIBERcast, and Facebook, YouTube. I think BitChute, I updated them. I don't have quite the time to just boost the stuff there. There's DLive, and DLive is the new one that I'm sharing on. So plenty of way to access the information. So without further ado, I'm gonna have Cory. Here we go. Hey, brother. Thank you for being there again. I know I mentioned it to you, but I just want to uh, thank you for sharing your precious time with me tonight and with the people. Um, Sarah says you're muted, but I can still hear you for some reason.
Oh,
Awesome.
do
So
you hear me?
before go on,
Oh, okay. Now I think I was muted. I
I
might have been
can.
muted the whole time. It's interesting you heard me. I didn't know this works like that. But my stream heard me. That's good. But regardless, I was just saying that communities are merging together. I didn't say anything important. I was saying that basically the freedom community, growing food, all these communities are coming together and they're realizing the importance of freedom, and
Yeah.
the people truly doing that work, they're focusing on the mind. They're focusing on the individual. They're not focused on collectives of these groups, of these titles and identities, and these man-made systems of politics and governments and these complex legalese policies. No, we're looking at like common sense, everyday people can understand it, but then also getting deep into our psychology, which is the things that we weren't taught and the things that people would like to know, but they just simply weren't taught. That I think is what we're kind of heading into. Because if I ask most people like about growing food, they're going to be like, yeah, I love growing food, or at least like I want to have healthy food. Do they want to actually do it? No, it might take a lot of work because they were never taught that. But if they were taught that in school, they wouldn't really be complaining about the work involved. It's simply
Yeah.
because they didn't have that foundation that a lot of like ancient cultures and the Amish and Mennonites and other communities have, like sort of this built into them, to where they're like 20 and 30 and they know how to do everything on the farm. And here's me trying to learn it, already at a point in time where they would have already known everything. So it's like we're kind of catching up the speed with some of the things that we should have known by now, and our ancestors or our founding fathers or our grandparents should have taught us, but we have to like reteach ourselves because they were brainwashed or deceived into thinking that, well, we should let the government take control of all these industries instead. Or we shouldn't take control of our own health and instead be dependent on pills and big pharma, and let the microwave dinners take over our home cooked meals. I mean, we fell into a hole that we have to now like get ourselves back out of. This is the work. This is the one great work. It's like getting ourselves out of this hole we dug.
Hey! Before you're starting, man, I know you're on your way right now. But I just want to
No, go
ask
ahead.
you.
Go ahead. Just stop me. Just be like, done.
So, just for the people who don't know you, just quickly go over your work and who you are and where you're at now, so people can know where you're coming from.
Yeah, so lately I've been publishing this big boy, my baby, you know, because if I don't have children yet, this is my child for now. So this book is like 440 pages, super in detail, talking about the problem and the solution, which both I don't think are being detailed by pretty much anybody on earth, if you want me to be honest with you. And this history in particular, the abolitionism and statism and political slavery and, you know, technological slavery, these are concepts that unfortunately no authors nowadays are talking about, and really historians completely missed the mark on. There's
Just
Fred showing the old version of that.
look at the difference between the original one. It's crazy.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure that if I'm going to stand firm on my position that slavery still exists and that everybody is enslaving themselves, and that the biggest form of slavery that has created all the other forms of slavery is politics and government, that I would really stand firm in my position and have with me all the evidence to prove what I'm saying. And that book was great, had some bits of evidence, but this now has everything. So this is the Bible of abolitionism. That's why it says it on the side. If you want to call it that, you can, right? But there's a message on the back here. It says, a plea to stop engaging in politics, the greatest evil on earth. No votes, no politicians, no reform, no limitation, only abolition. If that triggers anybody out there, let me know. I would love to hear your comments.
By the way, this work is very has inspired me, and I discovered a lot of a connection with what I was because I became an anarchist in my younger years because I saw the illegitimacy and the violence and the this crap that is government. I seen it very soon in my life, and I had a lot of answers to my question in your work, and it's very inspiring. And I encourage people. It's this kind of book. You need to have it, in your living room. You get the Bible out and you get this incredible work. It is as important as this book,
Yeah,
in my opinion. Okay, so
for sure.
this is the end of all evil, but it's the French version. $9, brother. Fucking, it's you don't think about it. You buy it. I
Yeah.
fucking bought like 7 or 8 of them, and I gave them for free.
Yeah.
This is the kind of book that important to understand, because your wording, your work is incredible, and the effort that you're doing, and all the and by the way, I talking about your work. Here we go.
Go ahead.
So talk to me about that.
All right. So, if any of you guys were from 2022, you know I hosted the End of Slavery Summit. This is the Liberator 2 showcase. Has over 50 speakers, hundreds of resources, including access to the End of Slavery Summit and all those gifts, but also more gifts, including my latest book, which I give you basically a preview version of, but it has a lot of the basics in it. Basically, if you want the full detailed version, of course, I encourage buying the whole thing. But I made sure to include, some really core excerpts in that preview version. So just signing up for the summit, for this summit, will help you access that immediately. You can see I have a trailer I put out. Feel free to check it out. It's only about a minute long. It's got some cool music and animations. I do my best. And you can see we have a lot of very interesting speakers, everyday people, content creators, all sorts of different backgrounds. And that was the goal, right, with this project, is to make it as easy as possible for people to get involved so anybody can get involved. So we really did have a lot of people who you may have not heard of, people who you never knew were in this community. And that was the goal of the showcase, is to show all these people who are there doing this work behind the scenes. You don't have to be a content creator to be doing the one great work. There are people who are doing amazing things that if you talk to them, you find out, wow, they're really helping to free humanity, even if they're not using the modern technological means of doing so. And of course, it's my role as somebody who does to then connect with them, right? And to bring their message and what they're doing to the world. And I come across this very often. There's people who are above the age of 50, who have been seeing how things are just turning upside down in the world, and they're mad, and they want to do something. And so when somebody like me, who's half their age, comes into the picture, it might be quite beneficial to have them on their team, because now you got the older generation working with the new generation, somebody who's got tons of experience and expertise working with somebody who has a lot of expertise in the more media technological side of things. And so basically, I'm the networker. I'm the aggregator bringing together the knowledge and the people and the resources. And I don't claim to be the expert in any of those things. I just bring together the experts. And really, in that process, I do learn a lot. But if I see there's things that aren't being created, I create those things. And hence, I have my book on Taoism, my book on abolitionism, and then future works that I have planned, of course, as well. Basically, works that are just not simply being produced right now. We're making history, quite literally. And you can be a part of that history by literally just getting the word out and sharing what you see is wrong with the world, because you feel that way for a reason. Do not ignore it. And share that with people, because I guarantee you're going to find a bunch of people who feel the same way. If you feel that way, there's someone else who feels the same way. You just got to find them. And that's why I made my networking video as well. So anybody out there who, wants to find people in their area, I share over 20 different tips so you can network with people, different organizations, different terms to use. And I use it all. I use Facebook groups, Telegram groups, meetup groups, Eventbrite groups, let's see, Weston A. Price chapters, We Are Change chapters, Make Americans Free Again chapters. Yes, I still go to political rallies. Not really, like once or twice, and then I leave, and then I don't go back. It's only because I just can't stand it. But see, I go to them. I'm not afraid to go to them, because when I make my one-time impression or my second-time impression, people see me. And they notice my energy, and they notice how I feel. And if they're sick of things not changing in the world, they will start to be curious about what I'm doing. And they will not just stay in their box of thinking they have to work only within the lines of politics in order to change the world. Especially since quite literally my message is the opposite of politics, but they don't know that yet until they actually start to get into my work, to realize that I'm saying the solution is literally not politics. And that's how we literally free ourselves. I use the word literally because like a ton, because literally you have to end slavery, which is caused by politics directly. It's not like this is an indirect relationship here. It's you're literally enslaving yourself by voting somebody in office or by partaking in politics. That's how it works. You're giving them more rights than you by saying, here's a nice chair and I furnished it for you and everything. Like, that's literally what you're doing when you're voting. You're saying, like, I'm going to write on a piece of paper, this person who I want to rule over me. It's absurd. So, but that's what it is. And it is self-enslavement. It's mental slavery. It's statism. It's political slavery. But you're not going to see it as that until you actually understand the nature of slavery. And that's why I have this book and why I share the abolitionists and what they said, because I'm not the only one who said this. And I have now hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of more quotes than the previous book to prove the case. And not just that, but the long list of history to prove the case that government has always been slavery. It cannot be otherwise. And if you had any government not based on war, not based on slavery, it wouldn't be a government. Because tell me a government that wasn't founded on war. And tell me a government that hasn't been founded on taxation. Tell me a government that hasn't been using jailing systems. There just isn't. Because if you just go online, look up, how do I make someone a slave? Indoctrination, jailing, war, capture. Is that not all the same things governments do to even exist? It's very easy to understand. And I have a whole list of historians, including Thomas Paine or some of our founding fathers, who literally say it. Like, our governments are founded on war. They're founded on oppression. People like Thomas Paine even question to themselves. They're like, there was a time in Massachusetts where there was no government and they lived in peace. That kind of puts everything that we were thinking about the American Revolution on its head. He literally said that. I could pull up that quote if you want. And I have a bunch of others of founding fathers saying this. But so where are all the conservatives? Where are all the Republicans right now saying, oh, our founding fathers are the best? When I have quotes that literally have these founding fathers questioning what they're doing. And you can see it all throughout their works. A lot of them were like, if we have a Federal Reserve like we do now, our country would be compromised. If we had different infiltrators, our countries would be compromised. The Constitution, people like Jefferson, Washington weren't even there. Patrick Henry were warning people and saying that it would turn corrupt. Like, if you want, I can go through the whole history of all the things the Republicans and conservatives don't tell you. And then the left, I don't even bother. I'm not going to talk about them because the right are so disillusioned by their idea of freedom because they're so core on thinking that they're right, because the left is so crazy that it's so obvious to them that they think that because the left is crazy, it makes them not crazy. But they're just equally as crazy as each other. And when I say crazy, I mean as in illusioned, by their understanding. Because somebody can be out there listening to this right now, and if you're right-leaning, well, guess what? I was just where you were, not even a couple years ago. And of course, a lot of friends of mine can still be in that right-leaning mindset, and that's okay. If you're libertarian, same thing. But I do put you all in the same category if you play the game of politics. You're all playing this game of political slavery. And if you don't think that's the case, again, I challenge you, read my book and see what you have to say, or come to me with a question, open the conversation. Let's get the discussion going. Because is this system that we've been using for hundreds of years really going to help us? I mean, it's how many times have people tried to reform the system in the past 300 years? I mean, I can look at the abolitionists, and plenty of people among them were using politics, trying to change the laws. And it's not like it went to the direction of freedom. It just went to the direction of corruption, further and further corruption. And they saw that not even 50 years after the American Revolution. And this goes for everywhere else too. I mean, you have Russia, they have their own constitutions, you have France, and they started their own Declaration of Independence, kind of like America did. They're all like basically now, saying, oh, you have the right of speech, you have the right to vote, you have the right to do this, you have the right to do that. It's all man-made rights. It's all privileges. None of them are actually, what we would call a natural right or a natural law, meaning that you are simply being you, that gives you the right to say whatever you want. You simply being you, that gives you the right to choose how to live your own life. No, they don't say that. They say because you live in this country, because you live under this government, because this contract says so. But you didn't even sign that contract. You don't even know the founding fathers. You don't even know history 200 years ago, let alone 300 years ago, let alone 3,000 years ago. We have no clue. Look how many people are trying to figure out if Atlantis existed. I mean, like, that stuff is interesting, right? And history, we're constantly just trying to figure out, like, well, who are we? What are we trying to do? And I talk about this to you often, when I do these shows with you, is this idea of humans trying to figure out everything and trying to get a grasp of really the ungraspable, and it backfiring on humanity. And it's a concern of mine because, a lot of us are trying to figure out the truth. And if you're a truth seeker out there, you have to be able to look past all the barriers, all the divisions, and all the things that are trying to catch your eye. So if people are saying something, there's usually some truth behind it that isn't being said, and so even when I'm saying something, there's something beyond what I'm saying that you need to understand. And I encourage people to do that. And if you do that, that means you're not stuck in any cult. That means you're not stuck on any ideology. It means you're not stuck on any particular set way of thinking. And that makes you a true truth seeker, because you're always trying to find out what's the truth. Because what I'm saying is the truth now, which is that politics is slavery, to a lot of people, that's not the truth. But one day it might be the truth. And then once it's accepted as the truth, guess what? Now there's other truths that need to be attained. And so now it's not really like that's looked at as the truth. But the truth is eternal and universal, right? We often like to say this. So it should be those things we should have a grasp on. And I think if I talk to most people in the Western world, and, since we ended slavery, chattel slavery, we often say, most people will say, yeah, we did end it. So it's a practice that we figured it out. It's wrong. Like it took us 3,000, 4,000, 6,000 years to figure out, but we figured it out finally. It's like, yeah, okay, wow, it took quite a bit of time, and we did it. But if that's the case, how come that happened? Like, how come? Like, I want professors, I want people to start asking themselves the question, like, how do people just challenge something after thousands of years? Like, how does that work? You know, and how does that transition to now? Like, because history goes by pretty fast. Like, we see how the years just go by and we're like, oh my gosh, I thought 2010 was just like not even a year ago. Like, oh my gosh, I'm aging so fast. Like, people say time's going so fast. So just start thinking about time and start thinking about like where humanity's moving, and you'll realize it's like we are moving on a trajectory toward this thing we call truth, but it's always been here, and we're just grappling with it, and we're trying to figure it out. And some people have figured it out long ago, way before anyone else, and others are just trying to catch up to speed. And so there are parts of the world right now where some people are totally living some of the things that we're saying, but we don't know that they exist, and some of them don't know that we exist. You know, and really, there's different parts of the world that you would never know exist, doing these different types of things. And in Florida, I think this is a particular spot where a lot of these freedom ideas are going to flourish. I see this because I'm hands-on directly in these communities with the people who are growing food, the permaculture communities, with Jim Gale, how he's not asking for permission for permits on his property, and he's just going to do it anyways. And now he's had several people from the state go to his property, and he's not afraid. He had some fear that comes to him once in a while, and he takes a deep breath, and then he moves forward and he approaches with love. And by the end, they end up on his side because they can't disagree with what he's doing. And they can only come at him from the position of, oh, well, it says in this paperwork that you're not supposed to do this. But they know that what he's doing is right. And so, like, you can see they have this like conflict with their conscience of like, man, he's trying to save the world. He's doing good things. But the state tells me that he's not supposed to be doing this. And so you had like, for instance, there's a congressman. His name is Massey. If you want to look up his name, Congressman Massey. He he's quite an outcast in the Congress, because I think they voted 420 members against him as one person on the anti-Semitism bill, where they were trying to censor, free speech on campuses. He was the only person who was willing to challenge that in Congress. And he's also the only person willing to talk about raw milk and a bunch of other things. And he also visited Galt's Landing recently, and he loves what Jim's doing, despite the fact, again, he didn't ask for permission to put any of the buildings on his land. So it takes courageous actions from people like Jim to really to change the system. And I'm telling you, I'm setting up a land project in my area. Am I going to comply with the law and the permits and all this? I think it's up for grabs. It depends. I don't want to comply, obviously, but in this area, it's a very concentrated city. Jim is a little bit on the outskirts. They don't, and even though he's next to a sheriff's office, they don't bother him. They don't mess with him. I am willing to challenge the system, but we need to be able to do it en masse. And I want to be on everyone's friend first. I want all the government, all the people to love so much of what we're doing, so I can say to them, hey, this is we care about you as human beings. And we care about what we're doing for the earth, and you claim to protect the people, you claim to care for the people. Well, here's what we can do. And they won't have anything against us. And I say this because, I have other people involved in this project too. And I have people that I'm using their money. So, I had to gather investors. I had to gather like millions of dollars. I raised about $500,000 just through a couple of people, just from our network that I've gathered doing events every month. And now I have a guy who wants to pay all of it himself, one man. And I'm going to do an interview with him on my channel for this reason. And this is like pretty big news, you know what I mean? But he wants to use the paperwork. He wants to use the system. Like, he wants to make sure everything's done legally. I'm not against that. Okay. Because again, he wants to put all his money to this. He wants to make sure it's done his way. I'm not against that. What I care about is what we're doing. And if we can educate enough people where we can all leave the system at once, and we build enough of these communities so we can all do that, And that to me is the strategy out of this. I don't want to cause problems where otherwise there can be solutions. And we've really got to act strategically. So Jim taking the brave risk right now is amazing, but I don't want to take that risk yet. I want to take the risk when the time is right. I'm planning it out. You know what I mean? So I hope you know what I mean by this. It's like I'm not going to be saying to the government, no, we're not going to be complying with stuff like right away. It's got to take momentum of like we're going to work with the government and with the people, everybody that we see, to make sure this happens. But we're going to we're going to freely speak against the government. We're going to freely speak about what's going on, but we're going to show by example, and they're going to like our ideas. It's going to be irresistible to the governments until the governments basically don't exist anymore. we're gonna make them like us so much to where they can't exist. And that's what the point I'm getting at is because if and this is like the libertarian dream. If you can decentralize everything using the government so much to your advantage, the government will just fall apart on its own. That's kind of like their idea. But I'm not claiming that either. I'm claiming that you build up the infrastructure so much within the local communities that eventually they can just say an outright no. I'm not saying to keep these systems in place whatsoever. Those systems are irrelevant. They're barbaric. They're of the old times. They're based in violence. So I tried saying this through multiple ways. I hope you understand what I'm saying. But
Sure.
we have to comply in certain areas, and then other areas we're not going to comply, right? And we have to pick and choose our battles until we can just say the outright no. And we need to gather the strength in the communities through people like you and Canada and other places of the world, so we can gather the momentum so we can all say no. And that's how I see we end this system overall. And people who have a way bigger platform than me and you can do this probably overnight or over the course of a week or two if they wanted to. But I don't expect them to, because it's fearful. Like it's like you're expecting them to tell their audience to stop paying taxes, to stop doing something, and that's going to cause a big problem, right? I can say this to you because I only have a couple thousand people on my channel. I could still be targeted. I could still be censored or whatever. I know I am getting censored. I for a fact I know now. Um,
Well,
like
it's worse now.
I can tell. So when I was on Mike Adams' show, I had so many people enter my website. I had like literally hundreds, thousands, like enter the newsletter and everything because I didn't expect to get in touch with them. So you'd think my views would go up, but it went down. And it wasn't just that; it was a bunch of other things that was telling me, "Wow, the platforms really are pushing down on me." But I don't care. My channel's just going to grow word of mouth. I don't care if it doesn't push through the algorithms. It's gonna make it. You know, I'm still gonna push through it all. I'm still gonna do what I
And
can.
Cory, by the way, I mentioned it on the little podcast about self-sustainable infrastructure that people can build, and it's pretty cheap, and and it makes work for people, and the people will you get people invested in that. You know, it's not like super you don't have to be super brainy to start something like that. You just have to put your efforts and your care elsewhere, you know. And when we're talking about basic needs, you know, it shouldn't be a difficult like way to prepare abundance, to spread it, you know. It's and this is where the root of this apathy that we have right now because of the cultural indoctrination. People don't care anymore about the links between communities and village or groups of people. So we have a barrier on the internet. We have shadow banning. We have they can just like take your stuff out and put them to the trash. But there's the work. There's people who actually doing the work in the 3D world. What I mean is by that is getting dirty and making some efforts to create things and things like that. There's plenty of them, but it's a little percentage of people who get involved. This is a critical mass thing that must happen. People needs to join together, work on the same page. And the first thing that we have to solve is poverty, is malnutrition, is have people to having food. When you have a population who don't have food, there's criminality. People
Yep.
and there's only can be chaos out from there. So we have to solve this little problem. It's just because people don't fucking care, and we have to make. And this is what we are pretending to do right now, is trying to get people and go in their imagination and take this imagination and create something with it.
Yeah.
We don't have to do all podcasts or presentations or things like that. We have to get involved. You want to see change around you, be the fucking change. This is the phrase
Yeah.
there.
And I want to one day have the courage to say, all right, we're not going to comply, on
Yeah,
on a mass scale. But right now we're not ready. As you just said, people don't care, and we need more great workers. We need more
yeah.
people sharing the
Oh
education.
yes.
So there can be more Jim Gales out there who just say, yeah, we're not going to comply. And again, him doing this in an early stage, I applaud him, because it will cause a lot of media outrage if they do anything against them at this current moment. And I applaud him for his efforts, even if it's personally something I'm not going to do on my project right now. And again, I'm in a different area from him. I'm in a highly concentrated city, the most moved to city in all of America, Tampa area. Someone says, am I moving to South Carolina? Not going to happen. Sorry, but Florida is going to be awesome. In a couple of years from now, we're going to make this place a jungle of food. Probably. No, but seriously, at the rate at which we're going, we have the technology, free energy technology. And I'm going to share that on my channel as well. Amazing solutions people have never heard of. And it's all so simple. It's all so amazing. It's like, why hasn't this been in our hands all this time? And the same thing with the natural law, natural rights, all this stuff. So when people see how fundamental it is and how much they actually want to do it, and they're inspired and motivated to do it, they're going to do it. Talk about care. They're going to care to do so naturally, because the world's also going to obligate them to. The prices are only going up. The collapse is only coming more and more apparent. The world is only getting worse. So it's eventually people are going to care. It's just a matter of time as to when. They might care when it comes to everybody's eating each other alive and tearing apart the streets and throwing fires in the cities. And they might care when a false flag event happens and then, oh my gosh, America was attacked and blah, blah, blah. They're going to care one way or another. Where they put that care is another story. And what they do with that care is another story, right? So we got to be there as the solution, as the alternative, as the ideas that whose time has come, as Jim often says. He has a lot of good catchphrases for this. It's true. Like,
There's many blueprints, by the way. There
yeah.
was a lot of blueprints. Blueprints happened. Ubuntu contributionism and REB. Those group are now almost extinct. I don't know about Ubuntu in here in Quebec and Canada. Is I don't know if there's people
Mm-hmm.
anymore into that. But for the people who are interested in that, that's a very good blueprint for a money no money society. This is a transition, and it's not perfect. Where it's not. It does not mean that we're not gonna have money anymore, but we have to change the flow of energy.
Yep. So, like, there's some relevant questions I think we can cover in the chat here. Someone says, but it's not just paperwork, but rather it's the laws that people have created. Yeah, I'm saying let's do away with both. Um, but you must comply with what the majority decides. How else can society function? This is on the Twitch side, by the way, not on your chat. And this is Liberty Twitcher. Thank you for joining, by the way. And he says, well, how else, will society work without the majority? And truthfully, what we want, and I think Fred is on the same page with me here, is just a world based on consent, right? I mean, and tell me if I'm
Mhm.
wrong, but we live that way pretty much every day outside of politics. So that's how society would function, the way it literally always does outside of politics. That's my answer to you. And then, but isn't failure to comply just law breaking? Absolutely. And that's what makes it so moral, because you're choosing what to do based on your own conscience. The law is not morality, unless you can tell me that legality is morality. But then in that case, you would be the Nazi bringing me to the concentration camp. So unless you can prove me wrong there, I look forward to hearing your response. Next question, Crypt Rick. He says, as far as I can go back in history, there was never a time where no rulers of some kind has ever been in place. Like, has there ever been a place in time where no rulers has been? Well, actually, there has, but I'm not going to be this, actually, according to this history. I'm not going to do that. The truth is that you already live with no rulers pretty much in your household and in most places of society already. Again, the only exception is how we engage in politics. And this is, again, political slavery. And so what I mean by that is everyday people are making decisions, and they're not claiming to have a right to rule over each other. They're not claiming to have the ability to do violence to one another. And no one else has that ability to do, so it's a very like particular scenario that government is creating. It's not like something that's built in, interwoven into the fabric of society. Like government is this thing we can't get rid of. People make it sound like it is. But it's if I'm saying it's the equivalent of slavery, it's a mere superstition that we are living with this system that we simply don't need, and that society is actually quite productive without it. And as we did find out with the end of chattel slavery, cotton production actually got better, and people were able to create more businesses, and many African Americans had great ideas. They became inventors and authors and all this stuff. But that potential was suppressed because there was a superstition in the great masses that said those people deserve to be enslaved. Those people deserve to be under that system. And so, in history, all the governments have practiced slavery, and all the governments have basically always been slavery. Like I said, they were founded on war and oppression.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're talking about is really a voluntary government, you can call it, which isn't really any government at all, because it's just people coming together and voluntarily choosing how to live their own lives. So they're their own rulers over their own self. So there's always rulers. It's just where you apply it. There's always rules. It's just where you apply it. What we're not doing is saying that certain people have the right to make rules for everybody else, and that certain people are the rulers over everybody else. And we've been moving in that direction when we went from monarchy and kings and queens to constitutional republics. We're starting to recognize more and more that people have this thing called natural rights. Like, you have to bear in mind, this idea of natural rights hasn't even come into the equation more than like 200 years ago with John Locke and our founding fathers, like in the mass scale. There was always this concept of natural rights going far back, but it wasn't becoming known until like literally the 18th or 19th century, where it was now like talked about and written about. And now we have, we talk about natural law, which is all based on that. Yeah. So these are new concepts. And just because they're new does not mean they're not going to work constantly. Like, technology is new, and a lot of people are fearful of what it's going to do. But the reality is that it's here. You're not going to get rid of it. So you have to learn with how to live with it. And the funny thing is, technology is ever challenging these laws and these systems that we create, because technology is so innovative that it really puts a lot of things on its head. And I think it's as you move forward in history, you start to realize, these laws that we try to create and make fixed, they can't be. That's why we need to decentralize society or make it voluntary. So that way, when things do change, there isn't this massive resistance against change. We need to be able to flow, as I say in Taoism, is like be able to go with the times. And we could only do so when we have a free market of competition, and where people can really show their products or their examples and be the change without being violently pushed into a certain way. And that's what we're against here. If you're saying that there's never been a time where there hasn't been rulers, well, it's not true, because there's you practice it in the business place, in the organization place all the time. There's people making decisions, and there's people working without the need for authority and rulers.
Voluntary
There's no
commerce,
violence. It's you simply got to have a different perspective on this, right? When we talk about rulers, it's just a superstition, which means it doesn't exist. When people speak of it in terms of like, well, how do we get rid of this thing? They make it sound like it exists, but it's a lie. And a lie is something that can never really have actual existence. Let's see here. Government is the people. It's majority rule. We can't allow the minority of people to dictate the majority. Everyone knows that democracy is the best way. But people will voluntarily refuse to pay taxes. That can't work. Voluntarily refuse to pay taxes. Yeah. So what are you saying? As a democracy, it's our right to force others to pay taxes so we can have more stuff and so government can function. Okay, so go force your neighbor, to give him your money, like give you his money. Go ahead, go do it. Or unless you're going to hire someone else to do it because you think that there needs to be some authority to do it for you. I guarantee you're not going to do it yourself because you know it's wrong to do. So if you're telling me it's right to force others to pay taxes, then go ahead, go steal everybody's money. Go do it. I don't suggest you do it. I think it's incredibly immoral and criminal. And I would love to see you get punished for doing that. And for telling me that you can just steal my money. I think, you got to be careful what you say on the internet. Like you saying, oh, I want to do violence to someone and take their money. You got to be careful out here. My neighbor earns more than me, so I can use my vote to access some of what he earns. Okay, but regardless of the vote, what is the action? Are you taking his money against his will? Right? Regardless of the vote, because the vote is technically to do that, is it not?
Yeah. I just want to, and I mean, I've been asked this question because I had this kind of conversation with people, and actually, I dare people to justify slavery and violence. And when I'm telling that, justify government. If you can do that without like fucking looking elsewhere, when we actually know that government is duress and violence and lies and deceptions, you take people, because they trade something between them and you put them in jail. What about blackmailing? What about threatening to take your stuff? What is it? What is this the category for this kind of crime? So essentially, this is all theft. At anybody I ask them, can you justify government? Nobody could do it without justifying violence or theft.
I mean, he just said it's moral because it's a vote. And I just said before,
I disagree with that.
Yeah, and I just said before, if, let's say, the majority thought it was right to take your stuff, to throw you in a concentration camp, to do whatever they want with you because they voted for it, does that make it right? Because what you just said by your logic is that if they vote for it, it's moral. He just said it's moral because it's a vote. So he says it's not fair that the rich earn so much, but it's our right to vote to take some of it, even most of it if we can. Okay, so first of all, it's very arbitrary. What does he mean by rich, right? Like somebody can have a lot of money. Why do they have that much money? Maybe they actually produce some product that a lot of people are buying voluntarily. You ever think about that? Maybe the rich people are actually providing a service that people are using, and that's why they're supporting them. Or maybe these people are rich because they're taking other people's money, stealing it. I mean, you can look at the congressmen and the politicians and see how much money they make. What reason is these people rich? Does the reasons not matter to you? Why somebody has money or why somebody does what they do? You're just saying, oh, it's moral because they vote. But what is voting actually doing? You got to get more specific here, okay? Because I want to know what's actually being done into this world. We can't just use euphemisms. We can't just talk about generalizations. We got to get clear. Like, what do you mean by rich? What do you mean by vote? What do you mean? It's our right to vote to take some of it, even most of it, if we can. It's interesting that so many go into Congress with a normal income, and almost always they come out super rich. Okay, well, so you see how people are entering government and politics, and they're becoming rich. How do they get their money? If you're mad at these people for being so rich, but you just told me that it's moral because it's, we created this system. It's democracy. Next moment, you're like, wow, well, it's wrong because they're rich. Like,
Democracy is a lie. It's a fucking lie. This is what it is. Because even if one person of people who are disagreeing with 99%, it's still violence.
yeah, listen, even if Congress was a poor bunch of people, if they're still stealing other people's money,
Yep.
it's still wrong, is it not? Doesn't majority consensus establish morality? So again, my question to you is, if the majority wants to throw you in a concentration camp, does that make it right? Can you change what is right and wrong? Can you just say it's based on your opinion and your whim, and you can just decide any moment, you can just change how morality works? I mean, think about that for any other field of life. If you were to change mathematics and change the way science works or change the way medicine works, what's going to happen if you start twisting what is actually working, right? Like if let's say your body works in a certain way, and then someone says, no, the lungs are where the heart is supposed to be. The heart is supposed to be where the lungs are. And they just decide that because, they just choose to on their own whim. It's not going to work. It's like, we can't play the gods of this universe. We can't just start changing around the fabrics of reality and what works. And so I think this is key, because if we're trying to find a working system, a system that promotes order, we want to do something that creates order in all aspects of life. I mean, no wonder why we go wrong when we start giving certain people the power to do violence to others. It's violence. Of course it's going to grow. It's being permissed. It's
Yep.
being allowed into existence.
Yeah.
And it's
And
because people believe that it's necessary.
by the way, when you're going to vote, my champions, you know what you're doing? You're putting this little fucking piece of paper into a urn. And what is a urn? Is a place where you put the ashes of the dead.
Yeah, it's a way to look at it. Yeah.
So I mean, if for the people, and I know most people know, but government is slavery. It's the definition, by definition, it's slavery. It's mind control, and there's
Yeah.
no
People are not going to be
way.
ready for this, though, Fred. I mean, if they're new to these ideas, it's very, very different. And
We
Liberty
don't
Twitcher,
have.
I thank you for having this conversation. And, thinking that democracy is right and all that, a lot of people have that view. I mean, um,
It's still a lie.
yeah, just because a lot of people have it does not make it right. And just that literally already, it's funny because it speaks volumes on democracy and the nature of it. The funny thing is, true democracy can't take place unless you have anarchy. I want you to think
Yeah.
about this for a second. If people want to decide where they want to go for ice cream, I use that as an example just for fun because Larkin Rose does it too, or decide where to go for the movies or a restaurant, or maybe a business is trying to make a decision. Yeah, a majority and a minority, it's always at work. And there's different ways to set up a business and a structure and an organization. And there's a bunch of ways to do it. In fact, I'm doing it right now for my land project. I'm setting up a co-op document to maybe do like a food co-op type of system. But nowhere within this document or this business organization am I saying I have the right to do violence to other people who disagree with me. Nowhere in this co-op does it say that if somebody doesn't want to be a part of it, I have to violently make them comply and be a part of it. So it's not, it's democracy, but without violence. Do you see how it's voluntary? Do you see how it operates completely different from a system that, no matter what it is, if it's democracy or communism or whatever system you want to call it, if it's based on violence or if it's based on voluntary interaction, they're two separate different things. And they have different actions that are being partaken because of it. So we've got to get clear on what those actions are. Yeah, and you see, Liberty Twitcher even said that science, can be wrong and corrupt because science says that a man isn't a woman, but we know that's possible. He says, but we now know that's possible for a man to be a woman if he feels to be a woman. So, I mean, again, you have different arbitrary whims getting in the way of reality, right? people are going to have different views on that. The difference is when it comes to science, when it comes to these things, is there violence being done to somebody for these types of views, right? Like, let's say somebody wants to be gay married with someone else. Somebody says they're gay and they want to be like, I don't know. There's a bunch of weird practices nowadays, right? People can live however they want as long as they don't do violence to each other. Is that a bad position? Is that a wrong position of me? Liberty Twitcher, I'd like to know. Is it violence that I vote to take what others earned? Well, you just said to take what other people earned. Get rid of the first part of the sentence. I mean, that's the action that you're actually doing, right?
Are they trolling you or what?
They might be trolling me. I might be falling bait for it.
So I just want to
but
take
still,
the time to send a message. You know, if you're not an anarchist, if you're not thinking by yourself,
they said they're
you
trolling.
are doing us a total disservice.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a fervent abolitionist anarchist, and
There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm questioning your beliefs. I'm not talking about knowledge there. I'm talking about your belief, because government is in religion. So, when you're not in the mold, it don't fit in, then you're gonna be exclude. People will laugh at you. People will try to hurt you and things like that. But it's the same fucking thing. You aren't even in position to question that. You're not even aware of being aware. There's a fundamental there's a fundamental knowledge that have to be taken in order to understand this. If you don't care about the others, if you don't care about the well-being of the others, then this is not for you. Go out and go with other sleepwalkers. Here in the LIBERcast, I want mature, responsible adults. This is what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for proving anything. I don't want you to believe me. I just want you to take a minute and think about it.
Yeah. Many would argue that favoring liberty means you don't care about others. Yeah, because it's quite the opposite. We want people to live their own lives the way they want to live, right? And it sounds like such a radical position to those who want to tell other people how to live their own lives, and it's partly because they're projecting onto others their own insecurities and the fact that they can't imagine a different world from the one that they've been indoctrinated into believing. And it's a hard realization, and because it's such a hard realization, it can create on the opposite end many people, like you just admitted, Fred, yourself, a hard abolitionist. And how could I blame you for the world that we have inhabited to be as hard as it is on so many different aspects, but also so many people willing to support that very same system that enables that hard living, that hard mentality. It's making it really difficult when you have a bunch of people who want to enslave others. I mean, that's what it is. So it's going to cause a bunch of people like yourself to be extreme abolitionists, be like, let's end this. Like these people are promoting slavery. And you know what? The number one abolitionist from the 1800s that people look up to in history, he was on the rails. Every person who promoted slavery, he would go crazy attacking them. Like in his newspaper, pages and pages long, talking about how wrong they were about, promoting slavery. And I see this as a parallel to what, you do, Mark Passio does, I do sometimes, is we'll go into these rants and we'll talk to people about these ideas. And we'll get very passionate, sometimes very emotional, even though what we are saying is factually or based in knowledge. It's not something that we're coming at it purely from an emotional position. We believe what we're saying to be true, And because a lot of people don't see what we're saying is true, it makes us get emotional about it. It doesn't mean our argument is based on emotion. And that's just something to put out there, right? Because we have every right to be emotional if people aren't listening to us.
If
And
you're not angry at this point about
yeah,
this bullshit, then you're fucking sleeping on gas.
there you go. And
That's
again,
it.
read the history figures and all their struggles and see how angry they were, and then tell us that we're angry.
We're not enough angry.
Exactly, I would say so. Um, yeah, yeah, and you guys are making good points, in the chat and all that. It's a lot of people feel, the problem, and that's why I think it's important to engage in the solution as much as possible, so you don't get too wrapped up in the angry emotions, but you get angry enough so you can take action.
Don't
Angry.
vote.
Yeah, exactly. Angry enough to say you're not going to do what is perpetrating the system.
Don't give your consent. That's it.
Yeah, because a lot of people are still on the fence of like, oh well, if it won't hurt to just vote here. They haven't developed a strong principle to say I'm not going to do it. A strong no of saying I earn what I earn. It's mine, and someone earns what they earn, and it's theirs. That's how property ownership works. Unless you want to say ownership is not actually something that you own, like, so then anyone could take anything from you at any time, or they can decide based on if they have enough people in their town and you're outnumbered.
I'm gonna tell you something, brother. You know why it's going? The shit is hitting the fan because we don't have enough men. We don't have enough women who are involved in the work. This is
Yeah.
why.
Yeah, I would say we probably do have enough people in to recruit, but they aren't being recruited, if you're going to put it in that term.
We don't. They don't have to subscribe to any clubs whatsoever.
Yeah,
You don't have to go on the One Great Work Network and being
yeah,
accepted there. You don't have to.
yeah,
You
yeah.
do.
What I mean
You
by
just do
recruit,
something.
yeah, recruit as in like recruit into the voluntarist permaculture, freedom community, whatever we
Sure.
call it. It's really just like people starting to see that we need to actually take action, and a lot of people are still stuck, even in the truth community, because they haven't seen, they don't express their passion like you do, Fred. They're afraid. um
You think it's a problem?
well, yes, it is a problem, absolutely. If anybody's coming from a position of fear, what do you expect is going to be the result? And look how much fear is in independent media. If they're talking about zombies taking over and this and that, so if people are paranoid, they're afraid of people, the zombie apocalypse going to destroy them, and they can be angry about it, but they got to take action, and they got to be able to develop principles. And so the one
Mhm.
thing that differentiates you versus them is your anger. You're using it to develop principles to say, I'm not going to do this. But a lot of people are just angry, so they're kind of like latching onto whatever they can. I gotta buy survival buckets. I gotta go watch more of these videos. It's like, but you got to develop principles for yourself, and you got to be able to realize that these systems need to be completely replaced. I mean, they're old, they're barbaric, they're not based in freedom, and yeah, we need some strong people out there, mentally
The
and
question is,
morally.
how much do you care?
Yeah,
Care with a capital C. How much do you care?
yeah,
And the solution is very easy. It's not like we'd have to like talk about it for hours.
yeah.
It's really easy,
I said
you
it in the
know.
beginning. A voluntary world. Eh,
You got to get involved and educate yourself. This is the basic of everything into society. You
yep.
educate yourself, you learn the good things, the fundamentals, the principles, and then you build upon that.
Hmm.
So if you build your house onto sand and it's slippery, then your foundation will not hold. So you have to build them into rock solid fundamental knowledge and principles. But most people don't have that.
Yep.
They rather fucking buy a coffee $12 or fucking go elsewhere and burning their money on drugs
Yep. And I see
or
that a lot in the truth community. You know, people are coping. They're trying to get over
oh
the
yes,
problems, and but again, there needs to be a level of action. There needs to be a level of anger into what you do with that. You started your own podcast. I started my own channel. I started networking. I started doing events. I'm now doing a land project. I raised money, and now I'm setting up a whole system so we can replicate these systems everywhere. Why isn't everybody thinking about doing this in their own area if they care about freedom so much? You know what I mean? Like if they
yeah,
care about it, why wouldn't they try it? They know that if they just put a little bit of effort, they can make it going. They can get something going. If they just network a little bit and start raising money and using these different platforms. I mean, people do it for all sorts of things to start up businesses and organizations for all different causes, nonprofits and churches. There's churches in like every block here in Florida. You think that they would be doing something like this. But, regardless, they're successful in what they're doing because of their organization, because of their structure, and they let their faith and their emotions guide them to action. So
hmm
if you have those emotions and you feel like the world is wrong, bring those emotions to a place of action. Actually start to do something. And so that's why somebody's going to probably watch this and they're going to see me debating with this guy, and he said he was just joking. So, but it does give a good example, right? Of like that mentality is in people, right? Where they think that democracy works, majority works, but they don't actually really know. They're only parroting these phrases because other people say it and because they were taught that in school. But fundamentally, they know that violence is wrong. They wouldn't do it to their fellow man. So they have this already within them. All you're doing is really tapping into that and saying, okay, like I asked those questions. What about this? What about that? And since, he was just kind of trolling with me, he didn't really have to answer those. So he didn't. But he wanted to try to see, test me out. People are going to do that. I don't want you to test me out. I want you to go into the real world and talk with these people who actually think these things. You know what I mean? Uh
and
there's
there's
yeah.
many layers to that, and that one of the things that I keep on repeating is uh, uh, what is the relationship that you have with yourself and with the people around you. So based on what I understood with the time is the lack of understanding and the lack of deep introspection. So the relationship that you have with your surrounding, with your family, will influence the people that that will influence you in the way that you're thinking. So my parents weren't model parents. It's not about, I'm not talking about victimizing yourself, because there's a lot of victimization there. Okay, so people accepted their condition of slavery and mind control, but you're not a victim. You're doing it because you want to. Poverty exists because people consent to it. War exists because people consent to it.
Hmm.
Government, slavery, mind control exists because people consented to it.
Yep.
So this is not, we have to stop pointing out the fingers and looking ourselves in the mirror. So there's a lot of people who are projecting their insecurities, their cowardly condition, their behaviors, and they're gonna say, "Oh, I don't want to take care of anything, so I'm gonna give my responsibilities to some fucking mafias or garbage people who they don't care." And for the people who are listening to that, the government don't give a fuck about you. The only thing it wants you, it's to fucking mind control you to hell. And you know what? They actually doing it. They're fucking whooping our asses because people don't know, don't understand. I think people, in general, people understand what government is. violence and coercion and duress and all these things that are fucking shitty. People see that, but they're ignorant. They're
Yeah,
ignoring the
they can't
fact.
get past their own mind.
Oh, I know. I know because I ask a lot of questions to people. When I'm having this conversation, not this quality conversation like we have now. We can like talk about ideas and discuss about it, but most people, they cannot get over stop fucking lying to yourself and to other people.
Yep.
This is the first thing that you have to do is stop telling you fucking bullshit and lies. And
And you're right, that does require introspection because people are necessarily they're unconscious of what they're necessarily presenting to others. They're not always conscious of the things they say, right? And we're all prone to that, is making some mistakes on some of the things we say, or not really fully thinking through what we're saying. But when people are making these justifications for slavery or for statism, because of the nature of mental slavery, you don't know that you're enslaved. You don't know that you are making these deceptive statements. So all you have to do is take a step back to realize that you are, but that's much harder, to actually do it than I am saying it. It requires an aha moment, something to happen in someone's life usually to get them to really wake up. People will say, right? This idea of waking up. It's like something really hits them on the head. And I did over 30 different interviews for people, with people where they shared their personal experiences about how they got out of that mentality. It is a matter of education. It always is a matter of education, but the method of which educates them can vary, right? So it can be a bunch of different things. It could be, like I said before, a false flag event. It could be something in their personal life, a relationship. They could lose their house. A collapse can happen. A bunch of things, right? All these different things are going to affect an individual's mind, and it's something's going to shake them up to see something different. And oftentimes it can be a video or something that is sent to them, media wise, by a loved one or somebody that they care about. Uh, I think permaculture is a fantastic way to do it, by showing people that you can grow food, and then people will be like, how come I wasn't taught this in school? And you show like, hey, I'm actually doing this action, and it's inspiring. It's not just something that is the solution to most of the world's problems, whether it's the environment or the economy, etc. It's something that brings people to you, and you say, wow, this is like a tourist trap. I mean, it becomes to that scale, depending on how long the food forest is. Like I know people who've done a food forest for 3 or 4 years, and it's like a jungle. It's like everybody who goes through it, and they're like, wow, what is this? Right. And I've toured different places in Florida, and this is happening all over the state, but you can do it anywhere. And so that's just one example. But let's say you're talking about free energy or crypto, like something people are going to be interested in somewhere. They will be, and people are saving money doing crypto in certain ways. People are saving money with free energy devices. And if it saves money, now they're invested. I mean, now they want to hear about these ideas because they're realizing, wow, this is kept hidden from me, and now you're sharing something that actually affects my life. And people don't think philosophy and psychology, this stuff is important until they find out it is. Like there needs to be like these bridges to break open the barriers in people's minds to help them see this fundamental root, which is again this mental slavery. And I think my book goes into it if anybody's into reading, but not everybody's into reading. So I'm going to have an audio book version of it too, but not everybody's into audio. So I'm going to have a video version, but not everyone's into video. And then what do you got to do? You got to create an education site, but not everybody's going to go to that education site. So then what do you got to do? You got to think about the ways, if we're going to try to reach the world, how we're going to do that. And maybe it's by doing a festival, an event, going to places where people walk by, foot traffic, all sorts of things. This is the type of strategy that's needed if people have a message that they want to share. And many people just don't even know these ideas exist. So when we say education is not a solution, it absolutely is a solution. no matter what, it is the solution for everything. People were indoctrinated into the government. That was education. So that's how they ended up staying in that system. Education was the foundation to all of it. Again, I said, how do you make someone a slave? Indoctrination, war, capture, jailing. But what does the war, capture, and jailing do? It instills a fear and a trauma inside the person being captured. So it is educating themselves, saying they're saying to themselves in their psyche, I belong in this condition, or I can't escape this condition. They're teaching themselves and telling themselves they're not supposed to be free. So
Yeah.
everything is education. Even it just depends on how you look at it. Everything is dependent on how you look at it. Okay, so like when Crypt Rick asked that question before about like, oh, we've never had a system of no government before. We've never had no rulers. It depends on how you look at it. We've always had no rulers. We just simply never realized that. We've never had slavery. We've always been born free. Just we've been lying to ourselves into thinking like certain people aren't supposed to be free. It's just these lies and mere blockades that we're just figuring out were like illusions all this time.
Yeah.
And that's why they're
Fear.
illusions. That's why we need to get rid of them. Because
Yep.
they're not permanent. They're not static. And they're just causing resistance where there otherwise shouldn't be.
And I mean, where to start? You know, I mean, this is what
Yeah.
we're working so hard to expose. The many dark corners, the corners of the psyche, and the corners of the dark corners of society and cultural indoctrination and mind control and things like that. So if you want to get rid of mind control, you have to know about it and understand how it works. And this is where we have to be. And stop fucking believing. We don't need believers. We need knowers. We need people who know how it's work, how nature's goes. Because I know you, Cory, you have in-depth conversations and videos about nature and the relationship between us and this incredible world that we're living in. So fear is a big factor for sure. Fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of death that influence people in their decisions and their behaviors. So it's very important to understand the psyche and all the
And
psychological
that's our
aspect.
nature. Yeah. And that's
Yeah,
understanding our nature, like how our
yep,
psyche works.
yep. And it's not an easy task. You have to confront yourself. You have to put your, like Mark Passio says, your big boy pants and do something. You feel bad, it's bad, you have to do something about it. It's simple as that. And it starts with yourself. It starts with the people around you. It starts with your children. It starts with the relative around and you talk. Not people is comfortable to do that, having podcast and show your face and expose yourself and your opinions and things like that and these knowledge. And I understand that people are loathe this or loathe the work, and they don't want to do, but if you're interested in that, if the people now, maybe I know there's a lot of people who already know that are there, but the people will listen. You have to do your own work. Don't fucking wait. Do something.
Yep.
And this is so important to, and for me the big thing was to go public. Afterward, when you get used to, you don't think about it anymore. So it doesn't matter. But for the people who are like Cory is multidisciplinary. We have a Liberator too. You have this event that he's sharing, getting people together and share this information. And you're doing a good work. But we need more of yous and more of me's and more of Will Kellers and Mark Passios and all these incredible people who are giving their free time, their time to the work.
And when you say work, I mean, people should treat it as their actual work because
Yeah.
I do.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I
I
know
do.
you do.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like, if we're
Yeah.
calling it the great work, even greater than our other work, then we
Yeah.
really have to put that in action. And I do.
Sure.
I mean, I work on this all the time. So I'm sending out emails, I'm doing videos, I'm doing like the amount of things that are involved. At this point, I don't have to say it. I don't have to like brag about it because it's just part of it. It's just part of my work, right? It's like if a blacksmith, a master smith, is not going to tell you every aspect of what he does, but when you see him do it, he's just like super like flowy with it and amazing. It's because he's mastered the craft. And so at this point, I can type up books in a matter of weeks because of my dedication and my ability, and I can type really fast, and I've practiced with journaling and writing and speaking. And so you just over time get into the habit of mastering your work, and then your work becomes the great work on its own, like effortlessly. And yeah,
I mean, I
and
don't have as much time as you, brother.
no, I
I,
know.
I have
Oh, you have a family
responsibility
and
in the
everything.
outside world, and it's understandable
Yeah,
for the people.
exactly.
They have the responsibilities outside. I have children. I have 4 of them now, so I have to take care of my children. But
And I do
essentially,
the
they are
same
part
thing.
of the great work.
I would do the
They are
same thing,
part of
Fred.
my great work.
I would do the same thing. People don't need to dedicate a whole lot of time to this, but it's the
Yeah,
point that they do, because a lot of
yeah,
people simply aren't. And again, that's the things that they already see is happening. Because I all the time when I do these live streams and I tend to interact with viewers, I always see stipulations in people's brains, like, oh, well, other people think this, or oh, not enough people are going to do this, and you're always thinking about the external and what other people are thinking and doing. If you know something is right and true, stand on it yourself, even if you're the only one. Even if you feel like you're fearful of the method of how to share it with people and how they're going to perceive you and all this stuff, you're externalizing, you're pushing yourself down because of other people. Like, put them out of the equation. You and God, you and nature, you and truth. Embrace it. Don't
yeah,
let other people interfere with that relationship. You have that understood within your own psyche. You have the ability to do so much. You see in history how one person can change the world, and how they'll have millions of order followers. Well, we're not asking for order followers. We want people to think for themselves.
yeah,
But the fact that one person can change the world should be pretty and darn inspiring if you are one person and you're determined to do something. Because anyone who's really determined to do it will do it. Like when I
yeah,
said to myself, it was a joke at first, Fred. When I said to myself, what if I bought land and like actually like, grew food and like made an education site? Like it was a joke. I didn't actually, I was like to myself, I was laughing. Like I was like, what if I just like, because I was like, I'm not going to buy land. Like I'm not going to do that. I can't raise that much money. But like a couple days later, I'm like actually formulating the plan for that. And like it actually came into my fruition. I'm like, this is something I got to do because other people aren't doing it in this area. And then I went to Jim Gale's place several times, and it just became so apparent to me this is what had to be done, because the experiences there, and then feeling the energy there, and the people, and the inspiration. It's just it was a whole different feel for me, right? And so I started, doing some writing about it and thinking more about it. And I was like, yeah, this is something I got to do. But at first it was a joke. At first it was like just a thought in my imagination. Now it's becoming a reality because I dedicated the time to it. I made a bunch of emails. I sent out personal letters to a bunch of farms. I did events. I told everybody I know about it. And eventually the connections came together. I met people I did not expect, ideas and solutions and tours of people who've already done it. I would have never gotten to any of those if I did not give a possible chance to something that I was going to do. So I really just gave it a possible chance. Like I put it in the spotlight for a moment. I'm like, is it possible that I could do this? And if I told myself, oh, it's impossible, and I would have never met all those people, I would have never met all those ideas. So like you got to have some dedication to it. And I'm glad you guys I already see some people in the chat on my end who are saying that they're dedicated. That's good.
sure.
That's good.
I mean,
Now,
this is what we're looking for.
yes, and show it by your actions. Don't just tell us about it, right? Show it by your actions.
Yeah,
I plan on going to colleges and universities, right, and sharing these ideas. Now, I'm not going to share it like I share it with you, because every audience is different, and everybody is different. Like you got to feel the environment, you got to feel the people you're talking to, you got to connect with them. I know how to connect
mm,
with my generation. I can't tell you how I'm going to connect with them. I can't. I have to show it in person. I have to show by example. I'm telling this to a lot of people. I'm like, I have a bunch of plans and stuff of how to talk to colleges and universities, but I can't tell you about how I'm going to do it. I can tell you some things. Like I want to empower and inspire them. I'll tell you like descriptive terms about it, but I can't actually show you what it looks like. Because like I'm going to be on stage, I'm going to be having a microphone. I'm going to be doing Q&As and interviews and all sorts of things. And even then, I don't think people know my speaking ability until I actually do it. Not many people have given me a stage, especially in front of my own generation. So just wait and see when I am, because I know I get activated in a whole different way when I am. And I haven't been able to show that ability or talent within myself because I've never been given that opportunity. So I'm trying to reach the things that I know I can do. I know I have it within my power. And if I don't do it, being that I'm of this age, being that I'm of college age, I'll feel like when I'm older that I've missed my opportunity, because I really feel like I got to get involved with the colleges now. At least try, right? Because who else is going to do it? I don't know many people around my age who are trying to do it. So I'm see what I can do. And what I'm going to do is learn from them. Because we don't have a message, because we don't have, like you said, we're not trying to get anyone to believe us. We're not trying to create a cult. I don't think they're going to disagree when I say those things about, hey, I want to learn from you. And I'm not trying to tell you what to think. I'm going to try to get you how to think. I think they're going to be interested in that. They're going to be interested in the fact that I'm not trying to be the expert. I'm just going to be one among them who cares about them, who wants to give them support, who wants to show them solutions that they've never heard before. I think they're going to like that. And I truly mean that, because they're just confused. They're growing up in this world, and they're trying to find their life passion, their career, what they're going to do with the rest of their life. And they just need a little bit of direction, right? Because this world is pulling them in so many different ways. And I'm not there to give them necessarily direction as much as to say guidance or support, like as another resource on the side. And to say like, hey, I'm somebody who wrote books, who's meeting all these great people, these entrepreneurs, and I didn't intend to do so. It's just because I followed my heart, my passion, I was myself. And you can do the same thing. You don't need to try to be somebody. And I think they're going to like these messages, because we have a whole like mental health crisis on colleges and universities and this generation. It's like there's a lot of problems, but like if I can just offer a little bit of inspiration or empowerment, fantastic. And so I want to learn from them, get them thinking, just open the discussion as much as possible. If a professor watches this video with you and me, I don't know if they'll be discouraged, maybe at some of the parts where I say government slavery, don't participate in politics, because I'm not going to come out right and say that right away. But I do stand firm on that. I have to, because I know it to be true. And I would challenge them and say, if they're listening or if they're watching, read my book, and say, if it's wrong, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. I'm going to go to those colleges and I am going to share my work. And I am going to share some things that might be considered radical, simply because I'm saying that we should be free, and simply because I say we should live our own lives in the way we want. If you want to call that radical, go right ahead. But I don't think it's radical. And I don't think most of the students there are going to think it's radical. I don't think so. I truly don't think most of them are going to call it radical. Some people are going to get offended. But I think a lot of them are not going to get offended, because I don't come across as an aggressive person who's trying to disrupt things. I don't do I? I mean, I think most of the time I try not to. I mean, I'm just I care about my generation. And
you're an anarchist. You want chaos.
But see, I'm willing to talk to you. I think that actually should be a testament to me, because like, I don't care how angry you get, and I don't care how mad you get or Mark Passio gets. I'm still going to support you. I'm going to be by your side every moment of time. Some people are wusses and they're like, oh, they're getting angry. It's like, who cares? It doesn't change the matter of the information. It doesn't change what you're saying. Like, what you're saying is true, Fred. You can scream at your lungs, and I would be like, good job, Fred. What you said was true.
By the way, I on the French side, by the way, I was looking for doing a presentation in person, and I found a place. It's gonna be rather small first, but essentially I'm gonna try to have people and talk to them about natural law on the French side, because there's no one there.
Yeah,
I'm on an empty field. So I this is what I want to do, and I'm not gonna have the passion that I have when I'm doing the podcast. The LIBERcast is the LIBERcast. This is my place. I'm doing what I want here.
Right.
But when
Yeah,
I'm
and
gonna
you
get in
gotta,
front of
yeah.
people, when I'm gonna get in front of people and having like you said, discussion, and people were gonna have questions, I'm gonna be as fair as I can be,
Yeah.
because
And that's the
people
thing.
are not as passionate as I am. You
Yeah,
know.
but what I'm saying is somebody in that crowd may be like, "Oh, look, in this interview, they might link this video, or they'll link something of you, and they'll try to expose you, right? Because
Mhm.
this is what they do nowadays. We haven't been there because we're not like big figures online. But let's say we ever got big one day or anything happened, people are going to be looking through our material, trying to find things to attack us with, right?
Yeah.
So it's just funny. It's just important to make the disclaimer now because people are going to be looking for that, especially for me. If I try to go to colleges and stuff, and a lot of them are very tech based, and these colleges are going to probably try to vet me at times. Who knows? I just hope they could connect with me as a human to human because, I do have good intentions and I will connect with anybody. I don't care how extreme they're considered, whether it's some like Nick Fuentes, he's called an anti-Semite, white supremacist, all these things. I would still talk with them. If it was Hillary Clinton, I would still talk to them. If it was like Rockefeller, Rothschild, I'd still talk with them. If it was some alien, I'd talk to them. If there was like some demon, I'd be like, hey, you want to be interviewed? I wouldn't care. Because the point is like, I will meet anybody. I will talk to anybody. And I want the colleges to know that. And I don't, and if they don't like that, oh well. I think it's going to make me more liked. It's things like that are, it's funny because when they attack you, you start to win. And I know this about like Gandhi or Trump or any of these, historic movements that have happened, is when that person's attacked, it only increases their strength. So to some extent, it might have been purposeful that the media attacked Trump to make him bigger. um, you know, I think about that because I was in that conservative mindset myself, and I fell supporting Trump, and I was able to defend him against the media attacking him. All this media, I was like, "Oh, the media's all out to get him," and I fell into that mentality because it was so easy for me to. All the media was constantly attacking him, so it actually just made me a greater and greater supporter. It made me like further ingrained in the cult, right? So it's just something to bear in mind that, attacks are not necessarily a bad thing. And I welcome it. And I welcome people who have different views and different perspectives. The point is that I'm myself. The point is that I'm open. The point is that I don't have a restriction in my mind as to what I can or cannot say. It's more so my intent and my actions that matter. I want to bring to
Mhm.
the campuses the idea that we can live in a voluntary world. That's
Sure.
it. That's it. There's nothing else. And everything else is just like you have value, like the End of All Evil book says, right? Like imagine bringing that to the campuses and saying, hey, you have value. You don't have to look up to the experts or the doctors. You can be your own expert, your own doctor. You can be an
Yep.
entrepreneur. And there's plenty of entrepreneur classes and stuff that, people are trying to sell them online. Like you can be an entrepreneur, you can be a leader and all this stuff, but they're not actually telling them like they have inherent value or that like they can be an all-round healer, doctor, governor over themselves. They can be all those things if they want to be. But see, people have restrictions. It's like, yeah, you can be your own doctor, but make sure the government still controls you. You know what I mean? Because that's true. That's what people do. It's like you can be in our religion and have a connection with God, but make sure that you still follow what our church does, and make sure you give a donation to our church at the same time. You see what I mean? I'm not going
Yeah.
to be doing that. I'm going
And
to be. I'm willing to share my message with my generation for free. Like most people are going to be looking for some sort of money from that.
I cannot fucking stand the fact that some people call us extremists. So the government kills, steals,
It's because of how
and
you sound, right?
violated.
It's because of what you say, but that doesn't matter. Your actions are not what their actions are.
So I want freedom. I want morality. I want natural law to be like people to understand it. I don't want violence. I want the complete inversion of government. And I'm an extremist. I'm
Yeah,
against violence and the rest, and I'm an extremist. Like this fucking world is it's upside down, brother. You know. But I agree with the fact that the word anarchy as such is a dirty word, and freedom now is a dirty word. Oh, you're for freedom, and now people are mocking you because you want freedom. This is where we at. This is a
Yeah.
fucking mess, a
Yeah, people
crazy
judge by
land.
words and energies, and that's what I'm saying. Is like if the colleges and stuff are gonna vet me, I'm already it's gonna look bad for me because like they're gonna look at what I look like and the first impressions. I want a professor or students who care, like you say, people who have an intent, people who are still human, and if that's still within them, they would be open to my message.
Sure.
That's it.
And
It's
I,
just
I
that
think I
simple.
think even I mean we're all there, and we're all completing ourselves into this work. So I
Yes.
I I respect you have this you're calm, you talk well, and because
Sometimes.
you're doing a lot of work, and I think this is very inspiring, and I mean it. I'm looking up to people like you, and I mean this is what we have to do. This is where my heart is abolitionism and anarchy,
Yeah.
and the freedom. And I'm not fighting for that for myself. I'm doing it for my children and for my children's
Mhm.
children, etc., etc. This war that we're in is not about me.
Yep.
It's about having half decent future for children and
Mhm.
the elderly. Now we have big problems into voting, and government seems to be a secondary thing now, because like you mentioned earlier, we have mental illness epidemic, and it's getting worse with the time, and
Mhm.
we cannot aspire to do this work if people are not on the same page and working together in community. And this is what we have to do. We have to heal and care about the others, and create abundance. And it's very easy. We just have to work hand in hand on the same page, and then we're going to create this abundance, and this abundance will spread. It's going
Yep.
to be a natural thing.
Yeah.
And it's
Exactly.
very easy. We don't have to you don't have to really think hard about it.
Mhm.
It's very easy, convenient. And even here in Canada, where we're freezing our ass off, we can still doing and we can still do it.
Yeah.
you know we
Yeah.
have to build greenhouses and things like that are going to work 365 days a year. This is
Mhm.
what we have to do. and
Yeah.
and
Don't judge
and
it as good or bad, optimistic, pessimistic, paranoia. People got all these judgments, right? Just do the stinking work. Just do it.
just fucking do it. you know
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. It's true though. Like again, you see something, you fix it, right? It's just that simple.
Yep.
You don't be like, "Oh, I got to fix it." Oh, man,
You
like,
don't wait for
"Oh."
someone else to fix it for you. You do
Yeah,
it.
right. Like imagine,
you
right?
know?
Like your door breaks. Oh, the door broke. Oh, man, like it's just the door. It's like you're not going to sit there complain, but it's like, "All right, got to fix the door." All right, it's fixed. That's it.
Mhm.
Like you got to do it. It's like, oh, you got children to take care of. Oh, I got children to take care of. It's children, a lot of work. It's like, okay, stop spending all your energy complaining. How about you actually, help your children? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of people complain nowadays. A lot of people judge. And again, they go to the social media and they start complaining and start writing up stuff on people. And a lot of people lack, purpose too. So expect when I get involved with colleges, some people's purpose is going to be trying to push me down because
Sure.
they want the attention. And if I gather an audience of people at the colleges, I want to invite them to get involved. But some are still going to be jealous of others and say, I want more attention than this guy. And so they're going to go to social media and they're going to be like, oh, this person's this, said this about that. And they're going to write up a whole post, probably be like a story long page, insult slash like trying to critique, trying to say like all the boogie words to get people's attention. And, that's expected to happen because this is the age we live in, the media
Mhm.
technological drama age. So I might like my idea right now. But once I'm actually involved with the colleges and actually make an impact, I'm gonna start to regret it. But at the same time, I'm gonna be like, this is awesome because I'm making an impact. It's just, follow your passion. Again, do not judge yourself in this process, because I am very prone to judge myself if you start
People
to
will not
succeed.
clap, they're gonna do jazz hands because some people are anxious.
Yeah. Like, if anyone's going to judge themselves, it's going to be, people who make the most impact, because there's constantly people, attacking them, but they're not going to let that take them down, because they know that those people are just jealous. They're trying to seek attention. They have insecurities in their own life. The best thing, focus on your own life, focus on your own goals. And that's my message anyways, right? It's like, focus on yourself and help yourself. And like you said, stop pointing the finger at other people. So if I bring that message, to my generation, I expect, there's going to be resistance, but there's going to be resistance no matter what crowd I go to. The
Yeah.
difference is this crowd might be more open to it in some ways and also more close to it in other ways. And they have the tools for technology, though. So the one great work would be easy for them. Imagine you had 50 people filming on TikTok at the same time. How much harder would it be for the media to censor 50 people recording at once than it is one person? See what I mean? If you can affect my generation, it's over. And so that's why it's part of my goals.
I mean, I don't know how old you are, essentially.
23.
Okay, so I'm a little bit older. So my generation as such is fucking broken. So I mean, they're almost worse
It
than.
depends.
I don't know other people of my generation who are doing the work. Chris Nelson, maybe.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
it.
I mostly know people.
I'm talking about here in Quebec. I'm not talking around the world
Okay.
now. I'm talking about Canada and Quebec. I
Isn't
don't know anyone.
isn't the LIBERcast what's his name? Crypt Rick. He's in Canada, right? Quebec or close?
Ontario.
Ontario? But I mean, come on. You already got a network. You can start a network all over Canada. If you guys just
Yeah,
start.
but I'm not. I'm. This is not the. I know. I don't already have these people with me.
Hmm.
It's not
You're
that.
just saying they're not willing to do the work.
I'm just saying that the French Canadian are fucking sleeping at the wheel, and my generation is beyond broken because of the conditioning. Not everybody can think by themselves. There's a
Yeah.
high percentage of people who like to get told what to do.
Yeah.
I'm not part of it, and when I'm encountering my generation, and I'm generalizing there, I'm talking to statists, religionists, and
Well,
ignorant people.
yeah,
This is what I have. Go
that
on.
might be why you say that. If you
the
find
one
some,
that I encountered doesn't mean they doesn't exist, but I didn't see them. I didn't talk to them. You know, when I'm talking about, it's my around. You know,
I
even the
think you can find
freedom
them,
movement here, it's a joke. It's a joke.
but you've been
They're
there.
they're voters, they're statists, and they're for freedom. Yeah, we're gonna vote our freedom. We're gonna
Yeah, but that's where you got to
great.
start. You got to start somewhere.
They don't want to. They don't want to. All they
You-
want is
No,
their
of
own
course they're not going to
fucking
want to,
freedom, brother.
but you got to just be there.
I'm
Got
there.
just
You
be
know,
there.
I'm there, and this is
You gotta
why I
push
want to
through it.
get it to the next level, and I want to be there publicly.
Have you shared with them materials, books, stuff like that? You said you reprinted The End of All Evil.
I met one person, like I told you earlier. I met one person who
That's good.
decided to do the shadow work, and
Well,
I
that's
had
great.
this woman on the podcast.
That's awesome. So see, that's one, and then one turns into two, and then two turns into three. That's how
I'm
it
not.
works.
I'm not counting on that. all I'm drive for with is the will of telling the truth and
Yes.
morality and natural law. I don't care if people don't listen to it. I don't give a fuck. I just want to get the word out. You know,
But yeah.
I got depressed because of it, because I cannot fucking reach to French people because
Hmm.
they're too stubborn. You know, I know it because I'm one of them. I'm a stubborn motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know, so
Well, I mean, I had the same experience though. I feel like I've had to sit through like political stuff, and I was like, oh gosh, and I still have that today. Like if I'm networking with different groups, I know what I'm getting myself involved in, and then I end up going there, and what I do is I connect with each individual on the side, personally, and I see where their mind is at. I just explore their ideas, and then they start asking me about what I talk about. You know what I mean? And I don't really like bring it to their attention until they're ready for it, until they ask for it. That's my approach. And I'm not saying you're doing things wrong. I'm just saying that from my experience, I had to find a way of, how where they can open up to me and I don't have to open up to them first. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So like and,
Yeah.
and I failed many times. Like I swear I
Oh,
failed
sure.
many
I
times.
mean, most of the time I got the fluoride stare. So when I get the fluoride stare, I'm just fucking quitting. You
Yeah.
know, okay. I'm done. You know, you can see the glossy eyes. You know, and the fucking like that. And okay, I'm done. You know, I'm going to and go doing something else. You know,
Yeah.
and I wish it was better, but isn't. It's not. It's not, and it's not a coincidence that it's called a great work, because
Mhm.
this is a great work.
Yeah. Well, that's why
We
I think we gotta keep strategizing. Don't give up. Keep looking for groups in your area. Don't think that the hope is lost.
Oh,
There's always
I'm not saying that
yeah.
all hope is lost.
I
I
guarantee
won't
you,
say.
those groups that you went to, there were people who probably left those groups. Right? Think about that.
Hmm.
There's always outcast. I remember I would go to some groups and I would just sit around, right, and observe what people's like reactions were. And if I saw somebody in the back of the room who was like with their own notepad and like had a hoodie on or like looked like an outcast, right? Like wasn't sitting with anybody, I knew that was the person I should talk to. And I was right. I can tell now like who I should talk to,
Mhm.
based on just the way they conduct themselves, and the people they associate themselves around. So that's how I do it. I really see. And if I see somebody's like always talking, who's like trying to make friends with everybody, then that's a perfect person I can talk to as well. Because like they're usually trying to like make friends, they're trying to make connections. Others are kind of stuck in their ways and they're just cheerleaders on the side, just there, doing what everyone else is doing. You don't want those people, right? So I'm just letting you know like what works for me when I go to these different events
Yeah.
is you got to be able to like be observant before you do anything, and so like partake in just like sit through all of it, and be able to like take notes. It's not like you're not getting anything from it. You observe how their mentality works by sitting through it, like a philosopher, a psychologist on the side, like writing notes of your patients, like, this
Yeah.
is how they think. And really, that's what I do. Like in my mind, I'm looking around and seeing how the mentality of people work. And when I talk to Republicans, I haven't gone to any leftist groups. I'll be honest. I don't even know if they exist. I think they're all online wearing masks, like doing this, but with masks on. Like I swear, I don't know where they are. It's like, but also I don't know if they're that open to like learning things. And the
Mm.
Republicans tend to be right now in America a bit more open. So I utilize that, going to their events and seeing what they're up to. But if they do anything on any side, I don't care. I network with them. I found libertarian meetups and I try going to them too. People like to throw me into the libertarian camp, but then I tell them I'm against voting, and it's like, nope, can't do that. Um, but and so it's very interesting. You just got to be open minded. And I know somebody said to expand on my strategy. Well, it depends. If you have any questions, I can answer them for you. But thank you, Fred, for having me on and talking about this, because we gave a good example of somebody who has that status mentality. And then we went into, like, how we kind of help other people who have that mentality, and the struggles that we've gone through, because it's really a story to tell, and one day it's going to be history. Just as
I
much.
hope so, brother.
Well, just as
I
it
hope.
was with this. I mean, you read this book, it's basically the struggles of these people trying to convince the mass world that they were wrong. And
Yep.
so it's just the same thing. If anybody, again, watches this video and they think we're extreme and they think we're crazy, well, look back at the abolitionist history. It's the same exact thing that they had to go through. Where it's literally word per word. I can open up. Give me a page number. Just give me a random page number from like
65.
165. Why 65?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. So you opened up the page talking about how slavery manifests, and it talks about how, as evident from studying the words of Frederick Douglass, other former slaves and 19th century abolitionists, as well as those who have followed them, all slavery is said to consist in mainly two forms, starting in the mind, internal, and ending with the physical reality, the external, from mental slavery to physical slavery.
Yeah.
Slavery additionally manifests when it is committed and condoned, the same way we may recognize that wrongdoing turns into chaos, or a lesser chaos turning into a greater chaos. And then I mentioned the principle of mentalism, and I talk about what is mental slavery and physical slavery, also known as internal versus external slavery. There's different ways to put it. And the page that you particularly gave me was like on some of these quotes that were supporting that. And here's Rudolf Steiner. Only when they enslave my mind and spirit and drive my own impulses to action from my head and want to replace them with theirs, do they then intend my inner unfreedom. So it's like basically he's saying that, when they take his mind away from himself, he's now mentally enslaved from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, whoever wants to eradicate the pleasure of satisfying human desires must first make the human being into a slave who does not act because he wants to, but only because he ought. And so again, being very disciplined in our actions, having self-ownership, this is what gives you freedom. And many people don't see this core connection. But this is what we're hitting the nail on, which is why we say it can't be done through politics. Because politics isn't emphasizing the idea that you should take control of your own life. All it's saying is that you just write down on a piece of paper somebody you want to rule over you. It doesn't have anything whatsoever to do with self-ownership and teaching yourself or understanding what slavery, what the nature of freedom is, what rights are, what natural law, like nothing like that. There's no education involved. You can be a complete zombie and walk into a ballot box and be like, there we go, done. Put this paper here. Where do I put the piece of paper? Oh, there it is. And now
Get out of the short bus and the short bus, and you fucking.
I'm done. 4 years later, I'll come back to the same spot just to write a name on a piece of paper. Yeah, that sounds like you're doing a lot for the world, isn't it? Like, are you crazy? Here's H.L. Mencken. He's a good writer, too. He says, I believe that it is better to be free than to be not free, even when the former is dangerous and the latter is safe. I believe that the finest qualities of man can flourish only in free air, that progress made under the shadow of the policeman's club is false progress and of no permanent value. I believe that any man who takes the liberty of another into his keeping is bound to become a tyrant, and that any man who yields up his liberty, in however slight the measure, is bound to become a slave. This is known as H.L. Mencken is like one of the greatest authors like in history and like in America. Like these aren't like some like writers of fringe on the outskirts. Like these are actually like historic writers who are known for like writing poetry and novels and all sorts of things. But just the problem is historians don't look at it because they just only want to look at what they want to look at. It's absurd. They only look at what they want. They filter reality through their perception. So it's all arbitrary. It's all opinion based. That's what law is. So it's as above, so below.
Yep. We're almost 2 hours, man. We can go on for three, but I
Let's
must
do it. No, I'm
go.
just kidding.
Maybe one day we can do a stream or something.
It's been a while, so it's good
Yeah,
that we caught up.
yeah, and I want to thank you again, brother, for being there and patient and uh, uh, available for this for talking about this because we need to push this information. We
Hmm.
need to make this one of the fundamentals of what we're doing. And I
Yep.
hear a lot of talking about the walls of the prison, but essentially it's really refreshing to have grounded solutions in the real world
Yeah.
uh, in order to acquire what we say we want. And thank you for your inspiring work, Cory. And I'm talking a lot about your work, and I started the book. You know, I started the book, but I'm really busy, so I'm gonna continue later because anyway I have all these awesome conversation with you, so I have some steps ahead. um, but this is important, people, and I want to thank everybody being there, the guests and the people were there. I seen Theolux, Crypt Rick,
Yes. Thank you to the trolls
Sarah,
who made me distracted for 30 minutes talking about an issue you already agree about.
Chris Nelson, and Sal Representativité. Thank you for being there tonight. And once again, don't wait, do something.
Yep.
You know it's wrong, you know it's bad. Don't stay there and then doing nothing. Do something about it.
Yep.
You don't have to do podcasts like that. You can write book, write on the internet. You can go work in the community and help people. You don't have to be part of a fucking group or a community or something like that. You can do little things, but little things become greater things when we're all together and we're all working on the same page. This is what we have to do: is build the network and build the links between them, the communities. Put them between quotes there. The communities that are fucking beyond broken at this time. We didn't even talk about it, but essentially the two last episodes were about that on the LIBERcast,
Mm.
the culture of freedom. And the third one is coming. It's coming, and I'm yeah. By the way, for the people, there's part one and part two. Part three is coming. Is coming. It's gonna be about cardboard spirituality, and I'm rough on the corners there. You know, it's not a place where people will have easy words and pleasing words. It's gonna be hard hitting, like I like to do it. You know,
Yeah.
telling the things that how they
Do it.
are. You know, and this is what we have to do. And you know, Cory is very the way he talks and things like that. So we're completely linked together. I'm rough on the corners, and he's more smooth on this side. So
I'm not that smooth. I mean, like, I don't know how well I did in the beginning because I got carried away from reading the chat. That's my problem. But and he was trolling the whole time, of course, because that's how it works. It's like
sure.
if I was actually talking to that person in person, I feel like I probably could have ended it sooner. But because it's always when you're trying to talk to people on chat, and it was just like, huh, what's going on? But they everything seems like it went well, and um, they were just messing around with me saying democracy is so good, but in reality they knew all along that it wasn't good. And I think honestly it's funny because that's probably most people that say that.
Yeah, the smallest minority is the individual. Don't never
Yeah.
forget about that, people.
Yeah.
So it takes two people in order to have a tyranny. By the way, it takes only two-person.
I bet most people know the solution, just few are courageous enough to speak up about it.
Yeah.
That's all it
So
is.
take care, people. The next one, it's gonna be blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna have Chris Jensen on the 27th talking about end evil. And I'm looking for having all female the girls club. I'm talking with them and having them here and talk about this. And
Am I
yeah,
invited? I got long hair. No, just kidding. Not
I'm
invited.
not assuming your gender at all. You know,
Oh
it's
my! Are
okay, no
you offending me?
problem. I'm not. I seriously, man. I'm not talking about this shit because I know I'm gonna get passion and it's gonna get out of control, man. This fucking garbage that we have to deal with now. It's not enough to have religionists and statists and people who are
I know,
living in
right?
the
You have
fantasy
like a
land.
bunch of different things at once. I'm going to be trying to sort through all of it on college campuses. Trust me, that's going to be a bit of a challenge because I'm going to be talking
Oh
about
yeah,
like voluntarism, and someone's going to be like, "Well, is the Earth flat?" And then I'm going to be like, and then the next person's going to walk up to the stage and they're going to be like, "Well, Jesus said that we have to follow His commandments, and in this book, He says in this quote." And I'm gonna be like, ah, and then the next person's gonna walk up and they're gonna be like, as a transgender by this, and you gotta respect my rights, and that's what rights are. It's like I gotta be prepared for this, man. Like I'm just
oh,
saying.
I'm sure you're gonna stumble upon these fucking Marxists. They're
I don't
everywhere
know.
now.
You're gonna run into everything, and it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna love it. It's gonna be fun. I'm just gonna make it. I'm
Sure.
gonna make it fun because it's gonna be so crazy, and it's gonna, that you got to make it fun. That's what you got to do.
Yeah. So here we go. Thank you again, man. Thank you, people, and see you very soon. Very soon. Bye.